On this episode of the Constitution, we're going to do number 2. For you those that don't understand common English, that would be the Second Amendment to the Constitution. For those of you that do, that's pew pew.
You got me.
No, that's what?
Really dodged a bullet with that one, huh?
Yeah. So dumb.
Oh, shit.
We're too old now. So welcome to VetRospective. I'm Doc.
I'm Chuck.
On this episode, we discuss the Second Amendment and why it's important. Some would say the most important. Go ahead, Chuck.
Okay, the Second Amendment says, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Let's start with what's infringed mean?
The definition of infringe is to transgress or exceed the limits of, to defeat or to encroach on something or someone. In other words, to engage in trespass.
Transgress just sounds like a horrible, horrible thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
No transgressing me, thank you.
Basically saying the right to keep and bear arms shouldn't have any limits. It's not supposed to have any limits. To keep and bear arms, meaning if they want to make a law saying that you can't have certain calibers, that's a limitation. If they have a law saying that your gun can't fire a certain way, that's a limitation. If they have a law that says that you can't add something to your weapon to make it quieter, that's a limitation.
I mean, that's a limitation.
I mean, that's kind of the thing about it, too, is the recent thing on bump stocks and whether or not you should have it and whether or not it's a firearm, because the ATF says, oh, it's not a firearm, so we can put a limit on it. If it's not a firearm and you're the ATF, how do you have any jurisdiction over it? A bump stock's technically a prosthetic. It's not a firearm and it's not a piece of the firearm. So how does the ATF have any jurisdiction over that, being that it's not a firearm? They can't put any limits on firearms, so now they're putting limits on something that's not a firearm. That makes absolutely no sense to me.
The ATF itself is an infringement on the Second Amendment, is it not?
Oh, exactly.
So let's go to the first part of that constitutional amendment and explain it so the people at home understand.
A well-regulated militia, comma. Well-regulated means adapted, fitted, harmonious, matched, similar, usable, or comparable. That basically means that it's similar, matched, comparable to an actual standing army. The second definition in that section is militia is an army composed of ordinary citizens rather than professional soldiers. And that basically is our standing army inside the country. It kind of goes into other amendments. We're not supposed to have our own standing army on our own soil. That is the place of the militia.
And there is places where they can train on our soil, but those places are designated for training.
Exactly. So, a well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary for the security of a free state, comma, basically saying that if we're to stay free, we need basic everyday citizens to be armed and ready for a land invasion. That's exactly what that's for. It's not for fucking hunting. We don't need to make excuses. Oh, sorry, government, my weapons fell overboard on a boat. No, that's my right, is to protect this country.
And my family.
Exactly. So, a well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Now, we're not talking about hunting bear arms.
See, here's where it gets tricky. The right of the people.
It's not Biden's little confusion earlier a couple months ago where he was talking about, we, the government, we're the people. No, the people are the people.
The government are representatives of the people.
Well, they're supposed to be. Here lately, I wouldn't say they're representing anything.
No, they're turning to an autocracy or some shit like that, man. They think they're in charge of us and they make the rule.
The right of the people to keep and bear arms. To keep arms, that's obvious. To bear arms. To carry. Any state that has a limitation on whether or not you can carry arms is against the Constitution. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, shall not be limited. If you have to get a license, either carry openly or carry concealed, that's a limitation on bearing arms, whether they want to say so or not. Regardless of what tragedy might have happened last week, that's a limitation on your rights. That's a limitation on a very fundamental part of what this country was founded on. And to say otherwise is just simply ignorant. And I'm not calling people stupid. The definition of ignorant is they just don't know. I mean, it's ridiculous. And people want to have such a hard charged mentality on what they think is right and what they think isn't, but they haven't read the damn document.
They don't understand what words mean.
And I mean, hell, you can read any text from a teenager now and start to see the degeneration of our language.
Wonderful education system. Department of Education, you're doing a bang up job. So, shall not be infringed. That's a right. It doesn't say that it's a living document. It doesn't say that it's for the time of muskets. It doesn't say that you cannot own a cannon. Actually, there are supporting documents from early America that support the right to own a cannon, to own whatever the government owned to protect yourself. There's also supporting documents that say that there were more than muskets in that era. Arms aren't just muskets. That's silly. If you need us to look up the definition for arms for you, we can do that as well. In this era, you should be able to go into Google and type up the meaning of arms and figure it out for yourself.
The definition of arms: instruments or weapons, offensive or defensive, deeds or exploits of war, military service or science.
These are your rights. And some would say that the Second Amendment was put there to protect the First, which in my opinion is the most important. You need the right to freedom of speech to say what you want to say.
As far as I can tell in that, arms doesn't mean automatic, semi-automatic, black powder, musket, nothing about any of that. It also doesn't say it's for hunting deer or any of the other bullshit excuses that they say the Second Amendment's for. It says instruments or weapons, offensive or defensive, the deeds or exploits of war. That is arms. I mean, technically you could count a slingshot as arms, whatever. But also, does that mean I get to put missiles on my drone?
All I know is the right of the people to bear arms. There's no modern translation that changes that. It is the same now as it was then.
Yeah, and this whole excuse they use in Congress of, oh, well, it's old speech, it's confusing speech. There's nothing confusing about that. They're definable words. It's not a bunch of these and theys and those and all that bullshit. They're definable words. They have a definition. It's not difficult. Just exactly like the First Amendment. The Founding Fathers weren't stupid. They put commas where they belonged. A well-regulated militia, comma. That's stating the opening to the entire amendment. Being necessary to the security of a free state. That's why. The right of the people to keep and bear arms. That's what. Shall not be infringed. That's how it's supposed to happen. The commas are there for a specific reason. They're not there to say, oh, well, security of a free state. Oh, and the right of the people to keep and bear arms is a different subject. No, it's the same fucking sentence. The commas are there for a reason. And our founding fathers weren't stupid. We've lasted this long based on these documents for that reason. There's really nothing else that I can say about that.
So, if you like this English lesson on not only the proper way to use commas and the Second Amendment to the Constitution, like, subscribe, leave hateful comments.
Leave hateful comments, leave stroke my ego comments too. I love that.
All right, we're out.